Good evening. I would like to call Independent School District 721 to order. Janelle, please note that all board members are here except Mr. Bartuszczyk. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Janelle, do we have any other open forum requests? Okay. So before I get started on the 7 open forum requests, I'm going to apologize up front if I say your name incorrectly or if I can't exactly read your writing of what you want to speak about, but I'll do my best. First of all, thank you for coming and attending our school board meeting. This is important not only for if you have a student, but for our community. Please let me remind everyone some important points regarding the open forum guidelines. Our goal is to provide an orderly and efficient and fair opportunity to those that are present to be heard. Please be advised to limit your remarks to the 5 minutes. Personal attacks by anyone addressing the school board are unacceptable. Such remarks by any individual shall be terminated. I'll give you one warning, and if it continues, I will dismiss your conversation and ask you to leave the board meeting. Members of the audience are asked to refrain from any demonstration of support or opposition during anyone speaking or making comments. So, our first up is Miss Megan Schambauer. She would like to give a brief statement regarding the last board meeting and the freshman semester. Good evening.
Hello, and thank you for letting me speak here tonight. My name is Megan Schambauer, and I graduated from New Prague High School in 2020. My mom sat on this school board from 2012 to 2020, so I have the utmost respect for our school board members, teachers, and school faculty. Today, I'd like to give my thoughts on some comments that were made at the last meeting and the freshman seminar that, for whatever reason, has become a topic of contention. As a queer woman who grew up in New Prague, I rarely saw myself represented in the books that we read. My non-white friends also rarely saw themselves represented. So I'd like to thank Mrs. Bartuszczyk and other teachers who are trying to make our school system a bit more inclusive. I cannot tell you how much it means to me. Saying that all are welcome should not be a controversial statement. And if you are offended by everyone being welcome, I ask you to consider why that statement bothers you. Teachers shouldn't have to second guess bringing literature into their classroom that reflects all of our community members. All of the children of same-sex couples in our school system should feel welcome. All of the queer students and teachers in our school system should feel welcome because there is absolutely nothing wrong with being a member of the LGBTQ community. As for the freshman seminar that has become so controversial, it baffles me that inquiry-based learning is so frightening to some people. The term critical race theory somehow got tied to this class, even though it is in no way included in the curriculum. I am glad that we are adding this class to, among other things, help teach media literacy, since we have seen how important it is to be able to differentiate fact from opinion on the news and on social media. In conclusion, I would like to thank all of the teachers and New Prague area schools employees who are trying to make our school system better and more welcoming for everyone. I am sorry you've had to put up with backlash for including books that represent all of our students. I wish that someone had done that for me when I was little. And I'm excited that our 9th graders will be given the opportunity to experience inquiry-based learning. Thank you again for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Kathy Doyle. Speaking on the CRT and the ninth grade curriculum. Good
Hi.
evening.
I am here tonight to speak as a white woman. I am not here to apologize for being white. I am not here to apologize for the actions of my ancestors, as I had nothing to do with the choices that they made. I am, however, offended by some of those actions, and so I am here to defend the right and the need to tell the complete history of the United States. By knowing our past, we can have factual knowledge upon which to base our opinions and future actions. I like hearing both sides and making up my own mind. Given that no definition of critical race theory has been shared, it seems to me that our community is being challenged by a non-existent threat. I have neither seen nor heard anything that indicates the New Prague area schools has a curriculum that teaches students that they are either an oppressor or a victim. I am unaware of any learning standards suggesting that we need to dismantle our democracy. What I hear is that there is a need to teach truth and transparency so that all of our students are equipped to become engaged, discerning, and informed citizens. That sounds good to this white woman. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jeff Warsaw-Lavallee. He is talking about telling our students the whole truth of history of the United States.
Hello, my name is Jeff Warsaw-Lavelle. I live in this school district, and I am a retired educator from the Burnsville school system, where I taught high school math, chemistry, and astronomy for 40 years. I am very appreciative of having a few minutes to share with you tonight something that I wrote. It is entitled, "Why Are We Afraid to Tell Our Students the Whole Truth?" As we know, in a court of law, a witness is asked if they will promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. In my K-12 education, I was told a truth, but not the whole truth, about the history of our country. Certainly, to ask the question why this happened is open to dialogue and debate. But my presentation tonight is about a different question. Why do we in this district not want to tell our students the entire factual history of the United States? For me, to help me correct my lack of full knowledge of my country, I have been on a mission to educate myself. I have read about the history of our country, racism, and white privilege, which is also known as unearned racial advantage. Here are 5 things I have recently learned. Number 1, the phrase, "we the people," stated in the U.S. Constitution, did not refer to all people in the 13 colonies of the time. For the purposes of ratifying the Constitution, the word people referred only to free, land-owning men, white men, not women or people of color. Number 2, the white people in political power did everything possible to exterminate the indigenous people in the country that came to be known as USA. Yes, genocide was the intent. Number 3, Columbus did not discover America. It was already occupied by thousands of indigenous people when he arrived. Number 4, in the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, a prospering black community was destroyed by white people. Many blacks were killed and black businesses destroyed. And number 5, I want to express my shock, disgust, and anger over what I learned about the GI Bill. Like many white vets, my father used the GI Bill to help pay for his college education and to receive a low-interest loan to buy a new house in the suburbs. Historically, this established the middle class. I was under the impression that these benefits were equally available to all WW2 vets, both men and women, regardless of skin color. I was appalled to learn recently that my assumption was false. The GI Bill was set up to make it extremely difficult for black vets to receive the same benefits as the white men who fought by their side. In fact, only 4% of the black vets from WW2 were actually able to access those benefits. And on and on and on these examples go. To be clear, these learnings have not resulted in me hating America. Rather, they have motivated me to work for equality and justice for all. This country has many problems which deal with inequalities, such as housing, education, and employment. I contend these problems cannot be solved unless we know the full and complete history of their origin. To draw a parallel, it is true that many times a client in therapy is asked to examine their family history, to do what is referred to as family of origin work. Why is this asked of them? To help them understand why they think, feel, and behave as they do. I believe this approach applies to solving problems of inequality in our country. Our students in the New Prague school system must be told the whole truth about the history of the United States. Why? In order to help them understand why people in this country think, feel, and behave the way they do. In this way, they are better equipped to grapple with inequality and to make things more fair and more just for everybody. Why would we not prepare them completely by telling them the whole truth? As I end, I again leave you with my question. Why are we afraid of telling our students the whole truth about the history of the United States? Thank you again for this opportunity to share my thoughts with you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Karen Steinhoff, talking about curriculum. Curriculum?
Hi.
Karen?
Tonight I would like to talk about critical thinking. I taught high school English in four different school districts for 32 years. In my advanced writing classes, early lessons focused on creating investigative questions and methods of research. We did a lot of work on evaluating sources and finding proper support for any topic that the kids wanted to explore. Without exactly calling it that, what I taught was critical thinking when it came to gathering information from valid sources. What might be called critical thinking today, my kids, unfortunately, lovingly called the CRAP test. C-R-A-P, crap. Kids are weird. When applied to evaluating sources, the CRAP test works this way to teach critical thinking by asking important questions. The C stands for current. Is the information in this source timely? When was it published, revised, or updated? The R stands for relevancy. This covers the reliability, truthfulness, and correctness of the information. Where does the information come from? Does the author provide references or sources? Is the information supported by evidence, facts, statistics, or expert opinions? Is the information verifiable on another source? The A stands for authority, and that talks about the source of the information. Who is the author, who is the publisher, or who is the sponsor? What are the author's credentials, background, and qualifications to write on this topic? While a medical doctor may be a great source to use for anything health-related, he or she might not be a good source to use on climate change. Is there contact information such as an email address to allow you to contact them directly with any questions that you might have? Finally, the P stands for purpose. What is the reason that this information exists? What is the purpose of the information? To inform, to entertain, or to persuade you? Is the information fact, opinion, or propaganda? Does the point of view appear to be objective and impartial, laying out both sides, or is it simply one-sided? Using this method, my kids learned how to evaluate a source's validity before diving in and using that information. In all honesty, my job got harder and harder with the advent of cable news and social media, but it also became more important. I would have loved to have had taught in a school district that taught these skills in depth in earlier years before the kids came to me as juniors and seniors. I would certainly have had to review all of this for a day or two, but so much more of my time in the advanced writing course could have been spent with kids on their actual composition skills, pre-writing and rough drafting and editing and rewriting and publishing and everything else that goes with that. Also, for the last 7 years of my career, I taught college in the schools class called Modern Literature through the University of Minnesota, where our high school students studied both fiction and nonfiction from very diverse writers. Honestly, I was really disappointed in the lack of background that my college-bound students had of their own country's history. When we covered Native American literature, we had to do a lot of research on their culture and the influence that Europeans had on their lives. When we covered women authors, we had to do a lot of research on the history of women's rights in America, both in the law and in our culture. When we covered African American poetry, we had to do a lot of research on the Harlem Renaissance and the civil rights movement. When we covered novels about Vietnam, I brought in a guest speaker who shared his experiences as a medic in that very war, which gave them a much different perspective than they got in their history classes. All of this work had to be done before we could even start to evaluate a poem or formulate an opinion on a main character in a novel. But having this knowledge allowed my kids to see things from many different perspectives, think critically about characters' experiences, and bring that knowledge to discussions of the works. My kids didn't feel blame for the problems created generations ago, but they did feel empathy for the characters who were dealing with tough situations now. No one was ever told what to think. They were simply asked to think critically. I fear today that these lessons would be erroneously labeled as critical race theory, and some would like them to be removed from the curriculum. Please, please don't let that happen. Don't let our kids graduate without all the tools that they'll need to flourish in our complicated world. Maya Angelou said, "When we know better, we do better." Teaching kids critical thinking allows them to know better. It leaves the doing better up to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Daniel King on CRT follow-up.
Hey, everyone again.
Good evening.
Okay. As previously discussed, Loudoun County, Virginia continues to be the bellwether for pushback against CRT. It remains an example of where this fight to control the content in our classrooms can lead. You can also see this activism spreading across the nation as communities are getting more engaged with their local school boards. It is safe to say that not all the conversations have been well received, as passions are running high on both sides of the argument. Luckily, the conversation locally has remained civil, and hopefully that will continue. If you've been following the debate closely, you will have noticed that supporters of CRT are trying to change the narrative about what CRT is by redefining it, or totally misrepresenting the tenets of the ideology. A cursory reading of any of the numerous books written on the subject would quickly support the notion that it is a divisive, anti-American, racist, and ultimately Marxist ideology. We cannot lose sight of this fact. So why do we continue to bring up this subject? Feedback from the community has been very positive and supportive for starting this conversation, and I hope that continues as well. I understand that there is a lot of fear in the community and that people are reluctant to speak out against CRT for fear of retaliation. A recent example being the owner of the Bittersweet Bakery in Eagan, who had the audacity to speak at the June 28th District 196 school board meeting and is now having her business targeted by activists to shut it down. We cannot allow our voices to be silenced and need to remain active in this fight. We started this discussion because of a concern about the proposed curriculum change in February and have had productive meetings to explain the changes, but we're still waiting for the final syllabus for the class this fall. We would like to see this completed sooner rather than later. We're asking the board to define what actions will be taken going forward to address the continued push for CRT adoption by organizations such as the American Federation of Teachers. The community wants to be able to support the board in this fight, but we need to know what the game plan is, and it needs to be communicated. We look forward to continuing the discussions with the board and look forward to working with you. for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have Rick Stidger. Is talking regarding CRT and masks.
Hi, everyone. I don't have any notes, and my wife didn't want me to come here tonight, but, I just think that, people's opinions need to be heard. And I don't think critical race theory has any place in the school system. I think the job of an educator is to teach my kid how to read and write and learn arithmetics and things like that. I have 4 kids in the school system. Isn't it my job as a dad to teach them character? I'll quote this. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Martin Luther King. Isn't it my job as a father to teach my kids character? What does that have any place in the school system? I don't believe it does. The next thing I want to do, I did call in to Superintendent Tim and talk to him about mask wearing in schools, and I talked to Tony Boothie, and he said it wasn't up to the school board or the superintendent. I don't know if something can be done from you guys that can go up to the governor, because it starts at the grassroots level, but this virus has a 99.9999% survival rate in children in this school system. And by making these children hide their faces and hide their emotions, it's killing them on the inside. And I looked up some statistics of parents analyzing the children's masks after they got home from school from wearing these for 4, 5, 6 hours. Half of the masks were contaminated with 1 or more strains of pneumonia-causing bacteria. And if y'all know, the NIH put something out. The #1 cause of death in 1918 during the Spanish flu pandemic, you'd all assume it was the flu, right? It wasn't. It was from bacterial pneumonia caused from wearing masks. Look it up. The National Institute of Health is a pretty good resource. 1/3 were contaminated with 1 or more strains of meningitis causing bacteria. 1/3 were contaminated with dangerous antibiotic-resistant bacterial pathogens. In addition, less dangerous pathogens were identified, including pathogens that can cause fever, ulcers, acne, yeast infections, strep throat, periodontal disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and more. So, I don't know what you guys can do about that, if you can write up the ladder, but I think you're killing the kids on the inside and out. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Okay. And Mr. Dan Call. You would like to talk about CRT?
I'm one of those who have not improved my handwriting since the 3rd grade, so I apologize for that. I'm here again to continue the conversation we've been having on critical race theory. This is not an effort to hide the evils of racism nor our history. Opposition to CRT is an effort to prevent ourselves from repeating the same mistakes of the past and abandoning the principles of equality fought for in over 100 years of the civil rights movement. This is also not an issue of critical thinking. I noticed that most of what counted as critical thinking in my public education was based on limited information pointing my young mind to a preferred conclusion. The example I used last year on systemic racism was also pointed towards a clear conclusion that they wanted the students to make. In my public education, I never heard of Thomas Sowell or Clarence Thomas. And so oftentimes, under the guise of critical thinking, we don't present full information to let the students be exposed to real variety of viewpoints and real variety of conclusions that people come through from experiencing similar circumstances. Last month, I discussed 4 reasons why the proposed curriculum format would not keep critical race theory out of our school district, as currently proposed. I am returning this month to encourage the board and superintendent to take the first steps towards providing clear guidance and expectations to our teachers and students on this topic. The first step of dealing with the problem is to clearly define what the issue is and explain why the district does not believe CRT principles belong in our school. I have heard many members of the board and the superintendent express that view. And I think that if we clearly state what it is and what we're talking about so we can all get on the same page, it would allow our public forum to have a lot clearer guidance on what we're actually talking about and what we're opposed to or not. We're making a lot of assumptions and such based upon that. And so I encourage us, and I put a motion on the card to include a discussion. I would like to hear from the members of the board and the superintendent clearly what they think of when they say they're opposed to critical race theory, and what that would mean to them, and also why we think we're opposed to it or in favor of it. And so thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming, and thank you for bringing all your points to us. And I gotta just stop this, sorry. I would like for us to take under advisement at our next work session and discuss several of these topics, so. More paper. Okay. Call for a motion for the approval of agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Motion for consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. So on committee reports, no committees met except we will hear regarding Southwest Metro.
Southwest Metro does not meet normally during summer, but
Right.
we are currently, through negotiations, doing negotiations with the teachers. And we do negotiations that are quite congenial and working out quite well. So we're making good progress.
Good. And by the way, just on that, I actually drove past the new building on 169. It looks very nice.
Pretty sweet.
Yes, looks very nice. So, Superintendent Dipburner, do you got some good news?
Well, yeah, we're hiring quite a few new teachers here. Right now we've got one teacher opening left at the high school, but in the past few weeks, or I should say the past month, we've hired 17 new teachers at both the secondary and elementary level, so it's been very busy. And of course, last week you met our new elementary principal at Eagleview Elementary. So been busy with that, and the other thing, planning opening days with the new teachers. We have them for 2 days, and also bringing everybody back for our welcome back celebration and some of our professional development activities. So busy with that, but that's basically what's been going on. Finishing up summer school this week.
Great. We have a proposal band and choir trip to Orlando.
Yeah, Nicole TG was here last week, or last meeting, sorry, not last
Okay.
week, explaining it. We've had it on the agenda, so unless there's any questions, I'd like to act on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the trip to Orlando.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Strategic plan update.
Yep, we got Tony Boothie, our Director of Educational Services, will give us an update on that and where we're headed for this fall.
Good Good evening, Board of Education, Superintendent Dittberner. Thank you for having me speak on two things. I will make comments first on the strategic plan, which has been in place and working on since February of 2021. We have currently had 7 meetings so far. Last one that we had was June 16th. It was an all-day affair where we finished with a product called a district vision card, and that is what helps us as a district be accountable for what we put on the strategic plan. In September, we will continue with 2 more meetings, one in September, one in October, which will be our strategic planning committee of approximately 23 people. Then in November, it will come to the school board, and you'll be part of it for approximately between 2 and 4 separate meetings. Ray Queener, our advisor in this area, has set things up very well and easy to follow, and we've had lots and lots of really good information. Janelle, so if I want to get to fine. Thank you. When we sent out, the next topic that I'm going to talk on is the end of the year parent survey. But prior to me getting to that, instead of us having to send out 2 surveys to parents, we combined some questions in the end of the year parent survey that had strategic planning information in it. I would also like to say in April, we were able to bring in 25 parents from everywhere from pre-K through 12th grade. So we had a great number of parents that met here in the CEC building that provided information to us in the Strategic Planning Committee on the district and on the education of the New Prague schools. We also had an assemblance of New Prague High School students and New Prague Middle School students that provided some wonderful feedback and information. So the strategic plan has been a gathering of information from many different stakeholders thus far. And as I said before, we've got 2 more meetings, which will resume in September, and then to the board. The top 4 areas, and I put this in, I highlighted a few things. The first area, as we can see, academic achievement, safe and secure environment, which I'll talk a little bit about as we get into the parent survey, both physically and emotionally, safe and secure buildings, and access to technology. You can see the rest, and there is just a percentage, and that came out of 1,459 surveys that were returned from parents, again, pre-K through 12th grade. So that was a question on the end of the year parent survey on our strategic plan. Not to lose that, I'll just kind of roll right into the end of the year survey. Mr. Dittberner has provided this survey to all parents to collect feedback at the end of the year, which is very important for us. We take this feedback very seriously. And really work hard as an administrative team along with all of our staff to improve as many areas as we possibly can every single year. There is no doubt this 2021 survey results probably are a little bit skewed in whichever way you want it to be, meaning education was very different for everyone this last year. Some of our numbers saw a slight decrease, which we take very personally, and are looking into many of those areas, whether it was something to do with COVID or if it's an area that we definitely need to beef up or have some conversation on. That's the things that we're working on right now. The educational interruptions this year, I will guarantee you probably had a lot to do with some of the decreases on our parent survey. So I just highlighted a few as we go through here. Again, this is the 8th year of our survey. I'm just going to pick a few of them out as we go because there's just way too many questions to specifically go over. I'm satisfied by the steps the school district has taken to keep my child safe. That's very important. If you go back up into the strategic planning, that was number 2 and 3 as most important from our parents. Safe environment, both physically and emotionally, along with safe and secure buildings. So that's 92%, and we want to make sure that that stays high, that our families feel comfortable, that their children are safe in our buildings, both physically and emotionally. We always ask questions on the rank of communication. And specifically, what always comes up, number 1, is communication sent home directly from the schools, whether it's text or emails. That is how our parents want to receive that type of communication. That isn't any percentage, that just simply says the rank of the number of ways that they prefer to gain their communication. I'll talk about that here just in a second as we get going also. Contributions and accomplishments of students are celebrated, 89%. I highlighted that one because we would like that one to be higher. And I think that probably could be something to do with our COVID year last year, with us not in school, with us not having assemblies, with us not having lots of other gatherings and functions. It was really difficult to celebrate the accomplishments of school, and I think everybody can understand that. But that's definitely something that we are working on for the fall to make sure all of our students feel as if what they're doing and how they're doing it is celebrated. Disciplinary issues at school are handled appropriately. We're at 90% there, and again, that's always something that the principals want to make sure that parents feel as if their kids and the situations that sometimes occur are being handled appropriately. The school office provides a helpful and welcoming environment. This is something that all of our staff, support staff, teaching staff, and administration take very seriously. That's at 95%. So that's a positive thing that continues to stay that high. When people walk into our buildings, they want to be treated welcoming, and we want to make sure that we provide that environment for them. If I have a concern, I know I can contact someone at the school who will be helpful. Again, same thing. That's definitely something that we want to remain very high. If parents have questions, we're able to get back to them in a timely manner and help take care of any of those situations. School-to-home communication keeps parents well informed. This is something, it's at 88%, and we really worked very hard through the year plus of COVID, and it was very difficult at times to provide appropriate, quick, timely information, and many times we did do that. And it changed on us just a few days later. So there's no doubt that maybe that slipped down a little bit this year because people, everybody believed we were a lot of times really confused on the communication also, but we did the very best that we could, and that's definitely an area that we want to make sure we rebound for next year, and we will work very hard as building leaders and as teachers to make sure that that happens. The environment at my child's school supports learning. That, of course, is very important. We want that environment, and with the interruptions in distance learning and face-to-face and hybrid, there's no doubt that one probably we felt maybe was going to be a little bit more difficult, but it did stay up at 95%. We're very proud of all of our teachers and the other support staff who provided so much support in helping to do the very best they could through the distance learning and the hybrid. The education offered to students at our school is of high quality, 94%. That's what our business is, and we need to ensure and make sure that stays up there regardless of the type of educational environment that we are providing. And last but not least, teachers use technology to engage students in learning, and that's at 96%. That's an all-time high, and that would make sense because we relied so much on the technology this year for distance learning and hybrid. To give Mr. Most and our operations department a little bit of a plug, one of our highest survey results this year was my child's school is clean and well maintained, and that has always in the last 8 years been one of the highest. We have people that come from other schools, and even this building here, which is one of the oldest, even though it was renovated, but many people continue to say how clean all of our buildings are. So kudos to Mr. Most, the operation, and all of the staff that he oversees. My child's school provides high-quality fine arts, music, art, theater programs. That was at 93%. And then, below that is clubs and organizations, athletic programs. With this year, with COVID, there was lots of interruptions with that. So if few people mark things negatively there a little bit, that's definitely something that you can expect. But Mr. Skogerbo and all of our teachers in those fine arts areas are always working as hard as they possibly can to make sure that all kids have that opportunity to be part of something that is definitely needed in that area. And then last but not least, but our overall last question says, overall I am satisfied with my child's school. Whether it was a COVID year or not, that was 95%. We, of course, want that to be 100% all the time. And we will continue to plan, as Mr. Dittbrenner said, we're currently planning for our fall welcome back, our workshop week, which we puts lots and lots of information in front of our teachers and other support staff in preparation for the school year, and we will continue to do that. We listen to many different stakeholders. We listen to the parents and the kids, and that's what these surveys are for us to have an even better year than we did last year. So those are the 2021 parent end of the year survey results in many different areas. And again, I didn't go over all of them, but they are on board docs, and I would take any questions if there are any.
Tony, what was the total number that were sent out? How many surveys were sent out?
Oh, I don't know if I have the right in front of me, so it's going to be every household. So if Sandy might even know how many households, or Janelle, I think it's a little over 3,000 probably. Yep, 4,250 students around there. So I think it's high 2,000s, low 3,000s. Sorry to any, but I would say probably 50 to 60% return. And it's always been very consistent in that area.
I have one question, and if memory serves me right, we talked about this last year, and that's that one right at the end that you kind of jumped over with the guidance a child receives concerning what to do after graduation. If memory serves me right, I think we were at about 65% last year. And
I think last year was one of our highest ones, Leo, and that was one of Tim's goals the last few years, and we were definitely improving. This one did go down to 50%, and we continue to work with the principal, the counseling department in that area to try and find and fit the needs of what our parents and students are asking for. Why it dropped from 65 to 50. We're not going to blame it on anything. It was a difficult year. There's no doubt about it. And that might be one of the things, but it's an area of improvement, I know, from all of us, including Nicole at the high school.
Yeah, it's been an area of focus the last 4 years, actually. And it's actually gone up every year until this year. I think it was higher than 65, though. It was in the 70s. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But
like I said, I don't remember exactly what it was. I just know everything was in the 80s and 90s, and you weren't happy with the result of that last year.
It's an area of focus. I mean, Tony skipped over the nutrition one. Nutrition one was one of our lowest, and every year, nutrition choices and quality and all that, it's gone up every single year. And I don't know what it is this year. I can't remember, but can't read that from here. But
That's the only reason I asked about this one is because this was such a drastic drop. where-
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure we're, obviously, our high school administration's aware of it and taking a look at it.
Is there an opportunity to add like a area to add notes after this question, just because it's been such a number that's so much smaller than the rest of them? Maybe just getting some additional feedback where people can
Well-
put some input in there.
Right, and we have comments too.
Okay, that's what, yeah.
Yes,
A comment
yes.
section for this
Yep.
one particular, just because
And-
of,
Yeah, and Tony can share that with you. We've got the information.
Yeah, so we, any of those comments like Mr. Dibner is talking about, we pull those out and then provide those to the building principal or the director, depending on what department it is. And I did look up very quickly, it was 76% last year. So we definitely are down in that area. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have a memorandum of understanding for a therapy dog owner agreement. No one's talking on it? This MAU outlines the agreement between the district and the therapy dog Hannah Oaks. You have it? Have that? It's just a
oh,
what?
got it.
Oh, sorry. So sorry. Okay.
Anybody else see to it?
Nope.
All right.
Same agreements we've had.
So it's following
Oh,
the
it's the
same?
same one that we've had in the other year.
Okay.
I think this is our fourth one,
Okay. Perfect.
and pretty standard now.
Right?
I make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with Hannah Oaks.
I'll second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0.
Rescinding face mask.
Oh. So, as an executive order requiring face mask has been lifted, the policy requiring face masks for anyone in the district facility can be rescinded. So we are looking for a motion to rescind policy 808, COVID-19 face covering policy.
So moved.
Second.
Please.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Middle school handbook. Approval for the middle school handbook.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval for the high school handbook.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Approval for campus learning center student handbook.
So moved.
Second.
Great. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Gotta make sure I'm in track here. Sorry. Okay,
I'll make a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of personnel issues and discipline and negotiations.
I'll second.
great. It is 6:48. If we can meet in there in